School may finish, but learning doesn't. Life will continue to test you, no matter what age you are. And for that, you need a strong mindset to make the struggle with life work with you and not against you. This podcast is dedicated to using old head wisdom to explore what it means to be mentally strong, what it means to be successful, and how to get between tough times. We are Ricky and Keith Tillman. Thank you for watching today. Listening to Old Head Podcast with Ricky and Keith and Malik Tillman. Today's topic we're going to be talking about is leadership. So, Malik, can you start us off on leadership? What's your take on leadership?
Well, my understanding on leadership is that it revolves around responsibility. But what I'm interested in hearing today is, Keith, you held a position of leadership in the military, and there are a bunch of questions I kind of want to learn from you,
Okay.
just because I think there are very few individuals in the world who have had a type of leadership that you've had. And in my young years, there aren't many experiences in my life in which I've been able to exhibit the qualities of leadership, because when you're young, you don't really have the power to um, uh, or have power over other people. So there's not many opportunities to exhibit the virtue of good leadership. I feel like this is a experience which comes more abundant later on in life. So I have a bunch of questions, but before I do that, I'll explain my understanding of leadership. It seems that in order to be a leader, you have to adopt responsibility to the highest point in which you can. And leadership, in my views, is seen as something that is always, people always talk about as if is good, a good thing, which it is, but they never talk about the sacrifice of leadership, that adopting responsibility takes away the comfort of not responsibility. And a lot of people do find comfort in not taking up you know responsibility. So one of the questions I had was, with your experience, what's one of the greatest impediments or issues that people encounter in becoming leaders that you've seen? So let's say if you've seen people try to ascend the ranks, whether it be people under you or your people beside you, what character traits stop people from being good leaders that you've seen? Is it foolhardiness? Is it, yeah.
Yeah, no, no, that's a good question, Malik. And I think so many things that could prevent someone from being a leader, but I would say probably the most uh, common thing that I see is just an inability to think of other people. Like,
Mm.
to be a leader of people, whether it's men or women, you got to really be selfless, right? So, and what I mean by that is, you know, you're making decisions every day, no matter if you're a leader or you're operating independently. You have to make decisions.
Mhm.
But for people who are thinking of becoming a leader, if you can't make decisions that always have the thought of other people in mind, then a leadership role isn't for you. Because once you become a leader, it's not about you anymore. So I use this
Mm.
analogy. You know, you operate independently from the time you are born to the time you meet someone and start a family. Once you have kids, now you become a leader of that family, right? Because someone else is looking to you, your kids, um, to help guide them, to help take care of them. So if you're making decisions every day now as a parent, you're no longer making decisions that are about you. You're making decisions that will obviously have an impact on the lives of your children. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for people who have an inability to think of other people beyond themselves, they're not equipped to be in a leadership role, and they will eventually fail.
Interesting. Okay. So in psychology, there's this term emotional intelligence.
Right.
And there's IQ and EQ. Now, IQ is being, thinking logically and your problem solving skills. And in the world of business, you see like in a lot of like conference talks, the word EQ gets thrown around, emotional intelligence, which is being able to read people, being able to understand people. So it sounds like what you're saying is like those traits of understanding other people really is what makes you excel in the leadership roles.
Yeah.
One thing that I found interesting is I've read and seen some stuff about leadership in the animal kingdom, and what you said seems similar to that. So a lot of people have this view of leaders as these like the alpha, and the alpha is dominant and bosses the other other whatever it is, primates, or let's say if it's chimpanzees or wolves. Even you get the alpha wolf and the alpha team leader chimpanzee, and people have this idea that they're like the king and they can do what they want. But if you actually look at how those animals behave, it's not that at all. With chimpanzees, that any chimpanzee that is bosses other, it's big and strong, but it bosses the other ones around, the tribe turns on that chimpanzee. The alpha chimpanzee ends up being the chimpanzee that looks after, like chimpanzees do that grooming of each other. They look after the weak. They account for, and they essentially adopt responsibility. And that's what a lot of people miss in about leadership. And with wolves, I think this is true, but the alpha wolf will travel at the back of the pack when it's moving, which is the most vulnerable position, because they travel in a straight line, and they put the weak at the front, and the alpha travels at the back, which is the most vulnerable position, because it's not about him, it's about the pack.
Right.
So that's really interesting what you're saying, and I think that's the thing that people would miss, because people, in my opinion, from what I've seen, chase leadership for ambition, like selfish ambition. They want to be the leader because they want to be the boss. And it's ironic that in order to actually be a good leader, you have to not be about yourself. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something that is I consider it the cornerstone of being an effective leader, which is having a high level of emotional intelligence. And you can have a high IQ, and we can apply this to business. Your high intellect makes you great at doing a job that you solely operate on your own, like you're an individual contributor, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one can do that job as great as you. You're an expert in it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to getting other people to do the same level of work that you can do, which is what you are now charged to do as a leader, it will require emotional intelligence, because you got to be able to, number one, self-manage. That's what emotional intelligence is about. Being able to manage yourself, being able to be self-aware. And being self-aware, you got to understand, okay, what makes me tick? What makes me be kind of in a mood where I'm not good to be around people? What puts me in the mindset that I need to be in order to communicate with people effectively? Does it make sense?
Yes.
And so that self-management piece is one of the pillars of emotional intelligence. All right. And then it's like another big piece of it is social awareness, like understanding how people around you interact. what does it take to inspire them to do a great job at whatever it is you need them to do? Like what demotivates them? What frustrates them? How do they want to be talked to? And so all these things is what a leader has to focus on, because your objective is to get the people on your team to perform at a high level.
Mm.
So
Interesting. So have you found, and you might not have found this, but there have been times where you kind of, when you're dealing with a group of people, where you've had to knock down your ego a bit or your pride a bit, um, for the benefit of the group. Because I've seen this personally when I've had, let's say in rare instances where I have had people under me. There have been times where I want to, like, make my point and, like, stick it to them and tell them that they're wrong. But really I had to kind of deconstruct, take away my own ego and think about the benefit of, moving forward.
yeah,
Have you found
so
that?
that's what you did there. Is you went from thinking with an inward mindset to an outward mindset. And that's what this is all about, right? It's about mindset. If you're thinking inward, then you would have did what your original thought was that came to your mind. You would have made a point to prove a point. But what you did, you thought outward, and you thought about, okay, well, how will what I am about to say to them affect them?
Mm.
Figured out that it would have been a negative effect, which would have been counterproductive to what you're trying to do, right? These are the things that a leader has to be able to do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You can approach it with this mentality of, look, I'm the smartest person in the room. I know everything. Come to me for the answers.
Mm.
And you're going to fail. And people are going to smile when you fail, because you come across like, hey, I'm on this level, even though you are, right? Even though you are on a higher level because of your role, you can't carry yourself in that way, because you're trying to inspire people to be their best.
Mm.
Right. So
yeah, it's interesting you say that, because it's a little bit unrelated to leadership, but yesterday, or I've found myself doing this recently, and it's not needing to kind of defend my own ego. So like a friend of mine yesterday, he's more of an acquaintance. He said, he implied that I didn't know something which I actually know a lot about. And a younger version of myself would have been like, oh, actually I know this and that. But I found I just didn't need to say anything. And I just, like, I don't need to tell him that he's wrong and I'm right, or to um I don't need to kind of defend my own ego if it's not necessary. So I just
no,
stay quiet and let him continue to think what he thinks. Um, and yeah, and I feel that that relates to what you said, because if you are dealing with a team of people, you can't prove you're right all the time, especially if it's unproductive and unnecessary to do so.
yeah,
So that's a skill that I'm focusing on learning or
yeah,
getting better at. It's just like not biting your tongue, or it is biting your tongue in a good way, where um you don't need to lash out in
yeah.
that way. Mm.
And the other way of looking at it is, everyone has um, kind of this need to be seen as something. Like, you want people to see you a certain way. I mean, do you not?
Mhm.
Like, most people don't want to be seen as an idiot
Yeah,
or someone who's unintelligent, right?
yeah.
You don't want to be seen in any type of negative way. And
Hmm.
so, therefore, you carry yourself in a way that aligns with this idea of who you are trying to be seen as.
Hmm.
But what you'll end up doing, if you focus too much on this need to be seen as something, you'll you'll end up self-sabotaging,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because you're not walking in your truth, right?
yeah.
you're not walking with much self-awareness.
Mhm.
There it
Right? It's
is
not
right there.
about. Go ahead, Rick.
No, that's what it is. It's just self-awareness. What you done, you have to in order to be a good leader, you have to put a lot of time in studying who you are. To study your self values, your core values, and really knowing who you are. Then you have to put that into practice. Meaning, going back to what you said, you biting your tongue. There's no need for you to express or go on like a tennis match with that person when you're in touch with who you are as a person. You don't need to be, you don't feel challenged because you can let that person think what they want to think.
Yeah.
And so it all comes down to how much time and effort you put into your own self awareness,
Yeah.
self value. And so what you've done in that instant is you've empowered yourself. So when you put a lot of time into yourself, you're building yourself up to become someone that doesn't have to respond when say something negative towards you. You don't have to get angry. You can smile at them because you understand, right? You don't have to respond because somebody say and do things negative to you because you got a real strong core. Like if I was to say to you, "Oh, you're a terrible person," now you can take that and believe it, but when you put time and effort into yourself and becoming a leader, you become a leader in your own life as well. So you know who you are. You know what you stand for. You know what kind of
Mhm.
person you are. So when someone else
Yeah.
says that to you, then you don't need to feel that.
But one other thing that I heard or thought about was it seems from what Keith is saying that people who chase leadership for ego will likely fail because the first thing that they're thinking about in the position of leadership is their own image.
Yeah,
That's primary, and secondary is everyone else.
yeah,
But in order to be a good leader, primary has to be everyone else.
yeah,
Uh, yeah,
yeah.
that's what it seems.
And that's what
Which
makes
is,
leadership so tough.
mhm,
Because the challenge is, how do you make people feel valued?
mhm,
Everybody wants to feel valued, no matter what role they're playing. They want to feel They want to feel like they are valued added to that role, and that's your job to make them feel that way.
see, that's interesting because I've never heard that before. Um, in that I've you read books and everything, you look at YouTube videos and you hear stuff. I feel
Yeah,
like that is information that I've never considered and I've never like um thought I'd come across.
yeah,
Because now when I think like even when I go to work or I go to workplaces, um, that making other people feel valued um does increase the harmony, let's say, of the workplace.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. That's
That
interesting.
that is, but it takes people a while to learn that. You know, you may have heard that leaders are born. You can't. You're either born with it or you just don't have it at all.
Mhm.
And that's not true. Right? Leadership is something you can learn. It's a learned behavior. It's a process.
Mhm.
Right? You can be born with certain characteristics that are work in your favor, like being good with people. Right? There's some people who are they're just socially awkward. Right? They don't know how to communicate with people. And then there are some people who have this personality that they can walk in any room and start a conversation and it doesn't appear to be awkward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People like that will serve them well in a leadership role because they have the ability to communicate with people. And that's what you gotta have. That's what you gotta be able to do ultimately.
So
Yeah.
this is what you see in Coach Prime.
Mhm.
So what are some of the attributes you think Coach Prime is bringing to the table as far as leadership, Keith?
Energy, right? He brings an energy that inspires people to be their best. You know, there's no challenge too great for him. That's the perception people have of him. And so when you're around that type of energy, um, it's infectious. If you walk in the room and you got this aura about you that's depressing or uninspiring, well, that's the climate you're gonna create. Because people feed off of your energy. If they looking to you for guidance, instruction, or direction, they're gonna feed off your energy. So if you having a bad day, you about to make everybody in that room have a bad day.
Mm.
But versus if you're having a good day, then you're likely to inspire other people to have a good day. So I think the biggest attribute that Prime has is that energy he brings to a room.
Mm.
Just look at his interviews, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to get into his head, what do you think he think is his best attribute for his leadership?
What do I think he thinks it
Yeah.
is?
What is,
I don't know. I mean, um, that guy speaks with so much confidence. You know, he doesn't believe he can lose at anything
mm,
because there's so many examples in his life that demonstrates winning.
mm,
So someone with that mentality, he has to be linked to a group of people. He he has to be in a position where he's leading. He's not an independent operator, you
mm.
know. So I think if I had to guess, I would say he probably think his biggest strength is his ability to influence people.
All right. All right.
Mm.
So you've taken on a new role, a new career after leaving the military.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit what type of leadership you brought to this organization.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, just quickly, just before we do that, Dad, do you want to explain a bit of Keith's background in the military as well? Just to
You,
give
you
kind
go
of
ahead and
context.
explain what you think his background is.
Sorry.
You can go ahead.
Oh, I just think because you know his position a lot better, and you're very good at presenting people in a very high light.
Okay. Well, I don't want to leave anything out, but my take on Keith is, he's come from a small town there in Bruce, Mississippi. Um, Early on in life, having challenges, and as we all do, and then moved into the military where he excelled in as a soldier, um, going to battle, spending time in war zones, taking hits, surviving, thriving, leading his troops. Um, in my opinion, Keith is one of those natural born leaders because he's looking back at it. He's always been a leader in his life, and that's another thing I like to talk about: being a leader in your own life, as opposed to being a leader of men and women. So Keith is a trained, well trained soldier, but he's well trained in his own life. He spent just as much time focusing on his military career as he did as his education, and that's one of the key is to develop your education, focus on your career, but also spend a heck of a lot of time focusing on yourself. And that's what I see Keith has done, and take as you say, a high IQ person to be able to put that all together in a ball. So Keith has been into several wars, survived, come out into the world, and he ended up retiring from the military after 20 years. But in that time of being in the military, he focused on his steps to move transition into the real world. I call the real world, the civilian world. And so now he's moved on into his career in a job that he's thriving in, and he's bringing leadership. He's bringing a form of leadership that the military has trained him, and also he's trained himself for his life leadership. So Keith, I want you to talk to us about your journey and your mindset on how you, first of all, knew that you needed to um, become the person you are. You needed to put the time in. You needed to study and become the person you are.
Yeah. Well, bro, I appreciate that, man. I mean, I think you summed it up pretty good. Uh, for me, um, to answer that question, I think because I've been on the side where I've seen kind of the dark side of when you don't take accountability for your decisions that you make, when you don't have self awareness, when you don't understand how the decisions you make impact other people, impact your family, impact your friends, impact the people that you just deal with on a daily basis. I've seen the side of life where there's no education involved in your development. So I've seen these different things at a young age, and that made me realize as an adult, uh, if I want to create the kind of life that I want, then I got to do the exact opposite of what I'm doing in this very moment. Right. So for me, it's been a journey um, of self discovery in every way. I consider myself a lifelong learner. So it doesn't bother me at all to be in school, learning different things, talking to other people. I listen to learn. I don't listen to just to respond. So if someone's talking, I'm trying to get an understanding of what it is they're saying, what it is I think they're trying to say, uh, because I know at the end of the day, I'm gonna walk away um, a little bit better. So for me, when I entered the military, I think I shared this in another podcast with this girl, but I connected so well with people in the military because once I stepped from being an individual contributor to a leadership role, that gave me the platform to now impact people directly. I mean, I was already impacting people around me indirectly, not being in a title leadership role, but just my influence on people in general was always there. Um, but once I was elevated to a leadership role, it was a natural fit for me because, again, it gave me a platform to impact people. And I had seen the face of someone early on in my life who was in a leadership position or a position of influence, a position of trust, position of power, however you want to title it, and essentially turned their backs on the people who looked to them for very important guidance. And I happen to be one of those people that looked to this individual for, the right thing. And this wasn't a family member, this wasn't a friend, this was, you know, a leader along my childhood journey. And I remember how that impacted me. And so I carried that with me when I was given the opportunity to have that type of impact on people. And I was very intentional about understanding how impactful I could be to people. And I only wanted people to walk away with a positive experience whenever I dealt with them. So I would take on any leadership role that was difficult in the military. If they gave it to me early, I take it early. If you want to give me uh, 50 people, 70 people, 80 people, however many people you want to give me, I take them. There were leaders that didn't want female soldiers, give them to me. Because I knew that I only got their best interests in mind. So I know I'm dealing with someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's child, and so I'm gonna take care of them like I would want someone to take care of my own child. So my journey in the military, because I embraced being a leader, I had a great career because, believe it or not, everybody don't want to be a leader. And so, especially when it's a difficult job to do. And because I accepted these leadership roles, that took me to combat multiple times. Um, it's not something that I enjoyed doing, but it was the nature of the beast because of what I wanted to do while in uniform. Um, and so 20 years go by of various leadership roles. I mean, from small teams to large teams to thinking to leading on a operational level to a strategic level. And when I retired, or before I retired, I knew I wanted to do something as a second career where I could take my skill set with people and apply it. And I was very fortunate um, to find something, to find a role that I can do that in. So, um, my whole career, I was in logistics in the military. Started as a trans transportation guy, and ultimately moved into this logistician type concept. So I thought naturally that would be something that I would do once I retired. But man, I found my way to the energy industry, and I get a chance to talk to people who are becoming leaders for the first time for this company, and they could have been in a leadership role in another company that they work for, but a first time leadership role in our company, they come through me, and I take them through classes that focuses on their leadership soft skill. So it's nothing technical related. So we have conversations about emotional intelligence, how to manage conflict, how to have difficult discussions, um, how to manage performance, approaches to giving and receiving feedback. So I'm having daily discussions with leaders um, about these different topics. So
Mhm.
even though I did not assume a leadership role in this company because it wasn't something that I wanted, um, if you serve as a leader for as long as I did, it runs its course because leadership is tough. At some point, life got to become about your own development and not the development of others. And so it was very important to me to not go into an organization and assume another leadership role, but still be able to impact people. And so now I don't have a responsibility to people, but I have an ability to impact the people who do. So that's an ideal situation for me.
Mm. Okay, what's your advice on someone, say you got a young leader um wanting to improve their skills so they can be more impactful in their say entrepreneurship or business or even in just in the world. What
Mm,
sort of advice would you give them? Because I hear you talking about certain attributes like embracing,
right.
leaving your comfort zone, because that's what a lot of people are afraid to do, leave their comfort zone. And I always say, if you want your life to change, you got to embrace the things that you fear the most,
Hmm.
and your life will transform. So, what advice would you give these young leaders?
No, I agree with that. I mean, growth doesn't happen in a comfortable place, you know. And so you got to get comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable because you're now operating with an understanding that hey, I can't grow if I don't challenge myself.
Mm.
And life is about growth. It's not about getting to this place of comfort to where now I don't have to do anything anymore. That's where you go to die.
Yeah, it'll soon become uncomfortable.
Right. And it'll become uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you got to constantly be in this mindset of growth. Um, and I think in order for you to do that, you got to learn who you are. You got to make decisions that, it's about, again, I think it's about self discovery, man. You got to find out who you are as a person before you can decide what it is you want to do. If it's for the rest of your life, if it's for the next 5 years or 10 years, but you gotta find out what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths, what are you good at, what is your gift, what are you passionate about, what would you do for free if you could do it for free, right? What do you not like doing? So you got to figure out who you are first. Uh,
Mm.
and the only way to do that is to try different things, man.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to fail, because when you fail, that's an opportunity to learn. And
That's a
it's
big
about
one there. That's a
yeah,
big one there. That
it's about
fear of failing.
yeah,
I preach it all the time. Um, I think I started this with the boys when they were younger. I say to them, you got to learn to run through the ring of fire. Don't
yeah,
be afraid of failure, because everyone wants to achieve things, but they don't want to fail. And you can't get places in life without failing. And sometimes most of the time, your biggest growth comes when you fail the most, when you fail really, really bad.
yeah,
That's when you gotta be able to feel that pain, so you can then grow from that, learn from that. If you're clever, you figure it out. You figure out what went wrong, and
yeah,
or what you could have done better. So as an entrepreneur, in order for your business to grow, you have to grow. You have to become. Because if you just someone that say, I got this great product or great service, and it's gonna go crazy, and you think that you don't have to become a great entrepreneur, you're tricking yourself. So
yeah,
your business is a representation of who you become. So when we start out as an entrepreneur, we don't have many skills. We may not have much leadership skills. Probably not even a understanding of being a leader in your own life. That you dictate what goes on in your life. You determine whether you give up or keep moving. You
yeah,
determine what direction you want to go, or do you want to turn around and go back. So
yeah,
when you develop the skill and the mindset and understanding that everything is a reflection on you, when it comes to your business, I'm talking about. So if you
yeah,
want your business to be great, so you can have the things that you want in life, you have to become great. Meaning the skill set. You have to be willing to embrace the challenge, what you're talking about. You got to be
yeah,
willing to fall flat on your face. You got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. Do things that other people won't do. Stand tall, put your chest out, and put yourself out there. Those are the things you have to learn to be able to do, and bringing the leadership into because you are a leader. If you got a business, you best become a leader. And
yeah,
so if you think you're gonna hide behind your business, and you're gonna continue to hide behind your business will get to a certain level, and it's just gonna fall apart. And the same thing has been, as you said, in a leader. If you think you're not gonna be able to think of others and embrace others and take them and put them in front of you, then you're not going to be a very good leader. You may
yeah,
find yourself in a leadership role, but you're not going to be a great leader. You're going to be a terrible one. So life is about learning and getting these skills and becoming, as you said, self-awareness, self-development. Um, just the studying, continually studying and becoming, because those are the values that you get the most. The value comes from what you become, not what I have. It's what I become. So
yeah,
I think you got it all um, in a bag of chips. They say you got all that in a bag of chips as far as leadership. Now with this new role, you're in the process. Are you further educating yourself at the moment, or you in sort of any courses or training, even as a guy at your stage in your career?
Yeah, I mean, um, before I got, well, when I first got hired, I was in a PhD program for organizational leadership. But then I decided to take a break um, because I was starting this new role, and it was a lot that I had to learn. I'm in a new. First of all, I'm a civilian, right? And I'm not even a soldier anymore. So there was that transition, the mental transition of that. And now, not only am I a civilian, I'm in this corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I had to, make a be intentional about learning this corporate world, this corporate structure. It was a lot that I needed to learn, and I felt like I didn't need any distractions. And at the moment, or at that time, I felt like my education, I could pause it and make learning this role a priority, and then pick that back up when I'm ready. Um, Now, I wouldn't have did that if I was still in uniform because it didn't matter. I was going from position to position, but still going to school. Um, you know, Month after month, year after year. So it didn't matter. But I had a different ambition then. I had a different goal. I wanted to be prepared for life after the military, make sure I was competitive for these positions out here. So nothing was an excuse. I mean, there was a time where I was serving and I was working a part-time job and I was in grad school. Um, and that was too much, but it didn't feel like too much because I had a vision of where I was trying to go. And so that was more important to me. Um, I'll sacrifice sleep. I'll sacrifice being able to do this stuff with my kids and my wife because my objective is to get here. And you're part of my life, you're going to have to support that because that's where I'm trying to go. But now it's different.
Mm-hmm.
That effort has paid off. So now I got the ability to not do so much. I don't have to do so much now. I can just take it, you know, take my time with it and do what feels right.
Okay, so that I hear something different there that I wanted to bring up. What I hear there is goal setting, and so and again, if you want to be a good leader, you also have to be great at setting goals. And
Yeah,
this is what I'm talking to Malik about as well. To set goals, you don't keep it just in here. You have to write it down. Get good at writing your goals down. Because when you write your goals down, you can go back and you can review them. You can update them. But it's a way of keeping you on track. But what we do as young entrepreneurs or young people is everyone has goals and ambition. And this is what I've learned over the years. That one of the keys to success is learning to write your goals down. And it's a hard
yeah,
thing to transition into. You know it, but you don't do it. You think you can achieve these things by keeping them in our head, but it's so much going on. What happened is that the thought or the idea gets swallowed up with either you taking action or you've been pulled to a different direction or something happens in your life. But when you write those goals down, you got a list to review. And you can go back and see, well, I did this, I did that, I didn't do this, and so on and so forth. So one of the keys to being a good leader is being a good goal setter. And you did that. You probably did it with without writing them down, some of them. But
yeah,
in order to be great at what you do, you need to start writing. This is my advice for younger people. You write your goals down. So what I
yeah,
see is outstanding goal setting, planning, and becoming. So as another thing I say to Malik is in life, this is one of the secrets to life. Is learning, figuring out how things work. Then you study them. Then you
yeah,
become it. And that's what I'm doing right now with this YouTubing thing. and I'm figuring out how certain things work. Then I spend time studying it. Then hopefully I'll become it. So that's the ticket of anything in life. We have to figure out how things work. And another great thing to learn when you're young and coming out of school. Some of us is we might be, what they say, introverted, or we don't have the skills to go to the next level. We have these dreams of having all these great things. I want the fancy car, the money, and all this. But you have to work towards that. You have to become the person it would take to get that. Because if you're not that person, you're not going to get it. So I say, if you want to become great, you have to spend the time in studying who you are, learning your core values. And if you want to be a great leader, that goes with that. You want to be a great leader, study great leaders. What attributes do they have? What is Keith Tillman saying about leadership? Listen to that, study it, and become it. Malik, you got anything else you want to say?
And before you do, Malik, I want to go back to that goal setting thing, right? One of the things I had to learn about goal setting is what is an actual goal versus an objective. Some people confuse the two. Some people think, well, my goal is to become rich, right? That's some people's goal. But that's not really a goal. That's an objective. Goals happen between where you are now and where you're trying to go. You have to set goals to get to an objective. And I think people, well, I know I used to confuse the two. And so therefore I was creating unrealistic goals. Like it's not even realistic. Because although that's my goal, I don't have a process to get to that goal. So it's not a goal, it's an objective. And those goals are the things that you have to do in order to get to that place you're trying to go. Does that make sense? So that's what I teach in performance management now, which is how to set goals. So I'll give you an example. You may have employees, say you're in a leadership role, and the people who you lead, they want to be who you are, right? They're working to get to your position. And they say, well, that's my goal. When you ask, okay, well, what are your goals? And they say, well, I want to be a supervisor like you. Well, that's not a goal. That's not a goal. That's an objective. And so those things that you do in between, the things that you got to do to get to that, like, well, you need to focus on self-development. Okay, so what are some self-development goals? Well, every month you need to do a class on whatever. That's a goal. So you can write it down and say, okay, well, where am I at? Where am I at on this goal? Okay, now you're getting closer. You're getting closer and closer to that objective. Not to give a class, but people often confuse the two.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. You
Or
have to do. Yeah.
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 Right.
So yeah, you have to put those in between stuff. That's the goal, the list that it's going to take to achieve that goal. So like if you want to be a doctor, you're not just going to wake up tomorrow and be a doctor. So what do I have to do to become a doctor? Enroll in school, get these kind of classes, these grades, X amount of time, years, and then those are the goals. How do you get to become a doctor?
Because
So
they have to be, goals are measurable. You got to have some way to measure a goal, right? So how do you measure becoming something that you want to be? How do you measure that? How do you know if you're getting to that place? How do you know if you're on track to become that? So you have to create something that you can measure, and you can only measure goals. Right? My goal is to. You can relate it to fitness. My goal, my objective is to run a 5K, in 6 months. Okay, well, every week my goal is to walk 3 miles, right? To eventually get to a place where I can start running. So those are the things that are your goals. They're measurable, and There's something that you can write down and come back to and see if you achieve that goal.
Tick it off. Yeah.
But go ahead, Malik.
Yeah. So two things just on that. The goals, objective things. I had like a similar thing that I kind of used. I called them wins and victories. Because like if you think of um a goal like in soccer is like it's a score,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's a score towards the victory of the game. So I had this internal thing I called wins and victories. Yeah, and like you said, it's good to tease apart um like look idolizing, I guess you could call, or desiring a step towards something
Mm-hmm.
versus desiring a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely I like that concept a lot, and it's interesting to hear you say it as well. Um, one thing I had a question about was we kind of touched on it earlier, but in being a leader, you have to be willing to draw the attention of criticism.
Yeah.
And it seems that's a big thing that a lot of people don't want. It's the not so shiny side of being a leader, where not only are you looked upon, with graces, you're also looked upon in times of, turmoil.
Yeah.
And yeah, so what are your thoughts on that?
On criticism,
Yeah, and
receiving.
being willing to.
Yeah. So, well, the first thing you got to do is detach the negative tone to it, right?
Hmm.
Criticism. When that word criticism, you naturally think of something negative.
Hmm.
So you got to change your perspective about that first.
Hmm.
And what I like to put out there is feedback. If someone's telling you something about yourself, well, they're giving you feedback.
Hmm.
And in a moment that you're getting feedback, whether it's good feedback or bad feedback, positive or negative, it's still feedback.
Hmm.
And that's your opportunity to grow.
Hmm.
If if you're focused on growth, um, then you humble, then you understand that you're not doing everything right. You understand that there's something that you could be doing better. So you got to be open to feedback
Hmm.
and cherish when you get that feedback.
Yeah.
You can weed through whether it's a personal attack on you, there's a lot of personal opinions in it. You can weed through that and take
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
what's important, right? You got to believe in yourself enough to weed out what's crap
Hmm.
and take away what you can use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess you also have to be willing to be in that position, because you
Yeah.
guys were talking about, I'm not sure, I'm not familiar with a person you were talking about at the beginning, whether it was a state leader or something.
And a football coach
Oh,
for
okay, yeah. And but to be in that position, you have to be willing for like
yeah,
the chatter of
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So, like there's good criticism in the chatter, but then there's also small minds that will just talk about anything just to talk.
yeah.
And it seems like a lot of people are not willing to do that, and for good reason too, because um, even though criticism definitely is an opportunity to grow, um, it can be hard for a lot of people to hear constantly about how flawed they are. Like,
Yeah.
you need to do better, you need to do better, you need to do better. And some people can get kind of consumed by that.
Mhm.
So it's just an interesting point, because I think it's the part of leadership which some people might shy away from, or that isn't so grand. It's
They do shy away from it. Yeah,
yeah. Mm.
yeah. They
It is
don't.
a challenge. It's a challenge. I want to ask you, Keith, because that was one of my challenges. For people who are nice guys, who want
Mhm.
to be a leader or a nice person, one of my challenges was, first off the bat, was I wanted everybody to like me.
Right. First mistake.
Major mistake, and
Yeah,
it was torturous.
yeah.
What's your advice to some of the younger leaders who are coming through that right now?
Yes. Well, I mean, I get that. I deal with that a lot actually, and I've dealt with that a lot over the years. And I always tell them is leadership, not likership. All right. Don't confuse the two. Obviously, everyone wants to be looked at in high regards. Everyone wants to be liked. But you wasn't put in this position to be liked. You were put in the position to be a leader. And being a leader, you have to make tough decisions, decisions that are not always going to be popular with people. So you have to embrace that pushback that you're going to get. It's coming. You're not going to make the right decision that will please everyone all the time because everyone is different. So what I challenge people to focus more on is instead of focusing on how you think people perceive you, focus on learning as much as you can about the people that you are leading. And if you focus on learning about them, then what you're going to create is trust. You're going to create an open dialogue. You're going to create relationships with these people where honesty is always in the conversation because they believe that you've taken the time to learn who they are and therefore that you care. And at the end of the day, man, that's all people want to know. Does my leader care about me? Do they care about what I have to say? Do they care about my opinion? Do they even care that I'm in the building?
Hmm. Fair
So if
enough.
you can demonstrate that you care, you don't have to worry about being liked.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if
Gotcha.
you walk around and you're worrying about being liked, and now when someone come to you with a problem, you give them cupcake and ice cream every time because you just want to be liked. You're not really helping them solve the problem. You're
Hmm.
just putting a band-aid on it and sending them off to daycare. I mean, and
Hmm.
There's
that's that's
there's a
not what. Go ahead.
sorry. It just you reminded me of something. I think Plato made the point, and it's about a political leader.
Yeah,
That a political leader cannot. He, it is not a good thing if he is liked by all, because it means that he's compromised
yeah,
himself in some regard to please the masses. And he had two examples, and it was the candy man and the doctor. Let's say you have like a village, and
mhm,
there's the candy man who gives candy out to people, and then there's the doctor who gives disgusting medicine out to people. The doctor
yeah,
makes the village healthier, but you know, the
yeah,
Candyman will get the attention of the masses through, by poisoning the people with sugar.
yeah.
Um, so, like, it might seem as a good thing to be loved by all, but normally it isn't. Normally, there's something toxic going on there that you're selling them that isn't true.
Right. So I'll
Yeah.
give you a real world
Mhm.
example of this, and I'll tell it. So leadership looks different based on the situation, right? There's many different approaches to leadership, um, and you have to decide what approach you're going to take based on the situation.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna give you a situation of when I was in the military, and this was when I was in Afghanistan a long time ago. And to try to shorten this story, the guy who was in charge of leading our security convoy, because what we did in Afghanistan, we provided security for the host nation people who were providing supplies to our military bases. So whenever we went out, our job was to basically prevent these people from dying, right? Because the Taliban was trying to take out anybody who tried to support U.S. forces, and our role was to prevent that. And so the guy who was in charge of leading our convoy, um, he got hit and he got kind of taken out the fight. Now I was second in charge, and my responsibility to our convoy was an accountability role. So I had accountability responsibility for everyone in that convoy. So if someone wasn't in the presence of mind to be going out on the road that night, I had to identify that and create a solution to fix that. If someone needed to get out of a vehicle to take a piss or change a tire, do any type of activity, I had to know who that person was and what that person was doing. So when the leader went down and I went up to assess what was going on with this guy, I identified and determined that he was no longer capable to continue mission. So I had to influence him to get on a medical helicopter and go get seen, which meant I had to take charge now of that convoy. And it was chaos, all right? It wasn't just him that had been injured. There was many other that had been injured. And we were in the middle of what we call the kill zone, which means we still had the potential to get shot at because we were still in the location where everyone else who had been injured got injured. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we were in a very vulnerable position. And we were down people, right? We were short of staff, you could say.
Mhm.
The mission had to continue, but I had a decision to make. This is what I'm talking about. Leadership looks different based on the situation. Number one, I could have made a decision to go back where we started because we had not gone that far from our original camp, or keep going without our leader. And I had to base that decision on who was in the presence of mind to continue to do that. Now that they know that their leader is gone, what is their mindset like? Are they in the right frame of mind to continue mission? Or has everyone been defeated? So I had to make that assessment on 20 people, where it was 18 people at the time. So I had to look everyone in their face, in their eye, and determine if you're ready to keep going or we need to turn this convoy around and go back.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing that, I had to also think about how my decision will impact everyone. If I decide, no, we need to just go back, I had to think about, well, what kind of impact would that have on us for the remaining of our time in this combat theater? Because we still had several months to go. We still had several missions to do.
Mhm.
So what kind of tone would I set if I said, nope, hey, he's gone, we're going back? What kind of tone would that set? So I had to question that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to think about, well, what kind of tone would it set if I say, nope, let's go? You know, it is what it is, but we got a mission to do. I had to think about that. And ultimately, I chose to keep going. And that ended up serving me well because what I demonstrated in that moment was a fearlessness, right? It was chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And demonstrating a fearlessness was something that they expected from someone who assumed a leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just share that.
Man, that's a heck of a story.
Mm.
You got me on the edge of my seat with that one. Um, I would love to dig deeper into that and the mindset that made you come to that conclusion that you need to look these people in the face and demonstrate that. What did that come from? Was there any life experience that you can pull up and say that's where you got it from, or is it just something your instinct?
It was
Um,
instinct.
just
Yeah.
instinct.
Yeah, it was understanding the moment because you gotta understand that this was my fourth combat tour.
Right.
right? When I went to Afghanistan, it was the fourth time I did this. And so there were many other situations that gave me practice,
Mm.
if you want to say that. But I think I just understood the moment, man. It was chaos, and there were several people who were injured that we didn't know if they were dead or alive. I mean, it was chaotic. It's hard to describe,
Mm.
and so I know there was a lot of fear in a lot of people, and I don't know why I wasn't scared. I should have been, but I wasn't, and it was probably because I wasn't injured. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I'm intact. I got the ability to do what I need to do. And so I'm good. Now I need to make sure everyone else is good.
Mm.
And that's physically and mentally. And that story that I just shared is the very reason why. And the guy who it was is the guy who I end up, being his best man in his wedding just a few months ago.
Mm.
And it's that story that he credits me, and I don't agree, but he credits me for saving his life in that moment
Mm.
because he was in a really bad way, but he didn't want to quit on his team, but he
Mm.
wasn't in no condition to be any good to anybody, and
Mm.
so yeah, it was it was a hell of a moment, but
Right. So that
that's how
brings up
tough
another
leadership be.
that brings up another point where you just what brings it to me that remaining calm under pressure.
Yeah,
You have that's an attribute of a leader. How you got to be able to remain calm under pressure. And in an extreme situation like that,
yeah.
that's like the highest of the highest of remaining calm. Bullets flying and things that are going on around you.
But I tell you, bro, I used to get criticized early in my career. I would get criticized for my calm demeanor.
Mm.
I would have leaders say, "Well, nothing rattles him." Um, you know, he obviously don't care as much as I do. Right? He's not a fiery guy, and it took someone to identify the strength in that and to speak for me. I never had to
Exactly.
defend it myself. Like,
Mm.
okay, that's your thoughts. Those are your opinions. Tell me
Mm.
how you sleep at night with it, because I'm gonna
Mm.
be me. You have to lead according to who you are, and I'm naturally calm by nature,
Mm.
right? Even when there's a fire burning inside of me of anxiety, you'll never know it, and it ain't because I'm trying to hide it. It's just my natural being, so it comes naturally. So
Mm.
in moments of chaos, uh, I'm going to appear calm because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
But I'm not calm.
It's a
Um, so,
great attribute
yeah,
Yeah,
that only people who understand or in tune to that attribute will get it. And that person who explained your situation to the other, a lot of people don't get it. They think they need to, if something happened, they need to respond equally to that,
yeah.
or if somebody say
Yeah,
someone call you the N word, then you automatically got to snap there and break their head off,
yeah,
or you don't have to. You have to be able to be in control of your emotions,
yeah.
and
That's the
and and
emotional intelligence.
and so that goes back to what we talked about before: studying who you are and getting the core value who you are, so you don't overreact. You you know, a lot of people when you see an enthusiastic
Yeah,
person very enthusiastic, that don't mean that they care more.
right.
So you have to learn to be enthusiastic on the inside as opposed to being enthusiastic on the outside. You can be enthusiastic. I'm an enthusiastic person at times, but you need to be more enthusiastic on the inside when it comes to life and just who you are. And
Yeah,
I'm like you. I remain. I preach to myself. Remain calm under pressure. And I had a similar experience in my job. Working in my job, you have to keep. I see people panicking and they panic and they running and when things go wrong. And I was like you, I wouldn't panic. So I got a little criticism. You could have, but it ain't about panic. It's about composure and being able to study what's going on in life, what's going on around you. And that's why I say people who are great leaders and leaders in their own life, they put that work in, they know when the stuff hit the fan, I'm gonna get busy looking what's going on. I'm gonna assess situation. I'm not gonna spend my energy burning something that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so that's a key characteristic that I picked up on that story that man, that's an amazing thing that you under so much pressure and so much things going on in around you that you I mean most people look at you like you're crazy. This guy's crazy.
They probably
And then the same thing I learned on the schoolyard. Um a person come up to me and they push you and they want you to respond equally. But if you just stand there and look at them, they look at you like, and if you don't mess around and smile at them, they think you crazy. This guy's crazy.
yeah.
But is it? I don't have to respond the way you want me to respond. I respond the way I want because I'm in tune to who I am, and you are very in tune to the situation. So now you're able to make a clear
Yeah.
and a better decision about not just you. The whole story you explaining to us is that you were able to make decision what's best for your unit, what's best for
Yep.
the whole, and that's
Yep.
what a great leader is all about. And you
Got
already
a quick
covered that.
question about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say what was said before.
Mhm.
So, um, you had two options, and um, like telling the story now, you have the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
Um, but in the moment, you didn't, and both options would have, I guess, to you, be seen as reasonable. And I guess maybe you would have had two voices in your head arguing for each decision. What
Yeah.
made you pick the decision that you chose?
Well, I responded based off of my assessment of everyone else.
Mhm.
Right. When you've got these grown men and women looking you dead in your eyes, right? I'm not talking about looking at the ground, looking up at the sky, um, appearing to be distracted by other things. No, they're looking directly at you. Well, that tells me that whatever I say, they're going to do. That's what I picked up on. And so I picked up on they're looking to me for the next move. And so I had to make sure that my next move was the best move, yes. And I didn't know what was best in that moment. I didn't know what was waiting on us as we move forward. That was the unknown. The only thing I knew is what was going on in that very moment.
Mhm.
Everything else was a guess. And so I said, well, if I was in their shoes and I was looking to a leader, what would I want to see in that leader in this moment?
Mhm.
I can tell you what I wouldn't want to see, and that's weakness. Because how can you lead me into anything if you demonstrating in a moment where you got to have strength, weakness? And I felt like turning back would have been a sign of weakness. And
Mm.
so instead of saying, hey, let's go, I looked everybody in their eyes and I said, are y'all ready to go?
Mm.
And I got, hell yeah, let's go. And that was it.
Yeah. So it seems that, as we said at the beginning, your ability to tune into what would you want if you were your team,
Yeah.
and that, I don't know, it might seem a given to you. I see a lot of people not seeing that in in that stressful situation. They just see what they want.
Right.
I don't want to be in this situation, or even if they made the same decision that you did, it could still be for not good reasons. Like I want to do this, I want to take over, I want to conquer, I want to demonstrate my this and like my abilities and so on. That would be the same decision that you made, but for wrong reasons. What drove your decision, it seems, then is your ability to tune into what the people who you are leading would want and what would be best for them.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting point. And it seems then if they in their eyes they had a defeat in them where you might have judged that they're not capable of going forward, then you would have pulled them out of the situation.
I wouldn't have pulled them out immediately without trying to change what they would think, because I knew fear would have been driving it. They had every reason to be scared. They just saw stuff blow up. They just saw rockets get shot, and they just saw their leader get taken out.
Yep.
So they had every reason to demonstrate fear. But again, my role in that moment was to get them back to a place where, man, they don't hurt themselves, because fear is driving every thought process. But I'm gonna tell you, it may sound like that was easy to do, but it wasn't. But I will tell you what gave me the experience to do it is a lot of people who assume leadership roles in the military, they never get a chance to do what I was given an opportunity to do, which is my third deployment to Iraq. I got a chance to talk to the parent of one of my female soldiers. I had a female soldier from St. Louis, Missouri, that was 19 years old. And she looked every bit of 16. And her father, who was in his mid-50s at the time, and her mother, which was her stepmom, we were, I guess, 24 hours out from leaving Fort Campbell, Kentucky, getting on that plane and heading to Kuwait. And so when you're in this phase of the deployment of leaving, that's your time with your family, right? That's every soldier's time with their family. And at the time, Leah was just born. Leah, my baby girl, was a really little baby. She wasn't even talking. And Alyssa was, just big enough to run around. And so my kids were very, very young. And I was young in my marriage. And so I was trying to give as much time as I could to my own family. But I had this father, and I'm a father, who very politely said, you mind if I ask you a couple questions? And I was like, no, I don't mind. And so I had no idea what he was going to ask me. But he had every question that he could think of that were based on, he wanted to know what his daughter was about to get herself into, right? This is his only daughter. She's about to go off to war. And so he wanted to know, he had no military background. He had no understanding of the military. So he wanted to know what his daughter was getting herself into. And so his questions were based on that. And he had a lot of them. And I took the time to answer every question. And at the end of that conversation, he looked me in my eyes, and he was crying, this grown man, in tears. And he told me something that I carry with me the rest of my career, and I still carry it. And he said, look, I appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions, but my daughter's life is in your hands now. And he So I understood the assignment. I understood what my role was at that point, at that moment. I had 10 soldiers at the time. And the only parent I talked to was the parent of that female soldier. And in my mind, I said, well, that's the only parent that expressed how they felt. But every parent feel that way. So I don't just have the responsibility of her life. I got the responsibility of 9 other people. And so that's how I always approach every situation that's serious. Um, I've been entrusted with the care and livelihood of these soldiers. So I got to do for them what I would want somebody to do for my child.
Mm. Mm.
And so I always had what I thought was best in mind. Sometimes going back to that Afghanistan situation, I didn't know if that decision was best because, again, we could have been walking directly into another ambush.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I knew I couldn't be a weak leader,
Mm.
or they weren't going to follow me ever again.
That's it.
So,
Mm. Life lessons in this leadership topic, Keith. Being a leader in your own life takes all that what you just explained to me. Is you want to be protecting, learning, looking after yourself in life. You want to make sure that you continue to learn and develop and study who you are.
yeah.
We haven't really touched on the belief side of it, but you definitely need to have developed that skill of belief in who you are, an understanding of who you are.
Yeah.
The seriousness of your life, like you took that conversation with the Father to heart, and you took it with you, and it's going to be with you forever. And that's what I think we all have to have in our life is a level of seriousness about yourself when it comes to you want to live your life the best you can to become who you want to become. But take the lead role. A leader tries to get into the minds of the people and really make them feel their value. But in order for that leader to do that, they have to put time into themselves to gain that knowledge. And so you want to study who you are and who you want to become in this life. And if you want to be a great leader, those are some of the attributes you're going to need. So let's end it with that, if you don't mind. Is there more you want to talk about?
No. I'll just comment on that story. It's an excellent story. I don't think I'll ever forget it. It's given me a lot to think about because a lot of things come to mind. Like when you're in that decision, I would imagine the memory of that father, telling you that. Or I don't know if it was before or after that, but that would have added pressure to your decision making, and or it would have given you a perspective that might have been in conflict with a different perspective. So it seems to be a leader, you have to be a good decision maker, but also be a balanced thinker. That's what I got from that story, because now someone could have heard what that father had told them and then taken it to the extreme where even though that daughter, I believe, is in the military, she's there of her own decision and she's there to do her job. And even though that those father's words are deep and meaningful, they can't come in the way of her own decision at times as well.
Right.
So he just seems to be a prudent and balanced thinker, weighing up the options and being emotionally intelligent, which is it seems you demonstrated in this instance, is the key to leadership. And I feel like I've gotten, honestly, like a masterclass in leadership from, people who I've never heard, from before. So it's been really interesting listening to you, and appreciate your story as well and being willing to share that.
Yeah, man. It ain't something that I talk about
Hmm.
ever, but it was relevant
Yeah.
topic. And,
Mhm.
and if you could take another thing you should take away from that is people people want to know you care. You have to care as a leader.
Yeah.
If you don't if you don't care, it's going to influence your decision making the same way it will if you do care. And so for me, what that guy did was remind me of how much I need to care.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wasn't walking into a situation where I had no experience. This is my third time around. But this was the first time that I assumed the leadership role going into combat. And so my mindset had to be different and it changed in that very moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine that would kind of crush any like egotistical ambition that you might have. Let's say if, someone says, "Oh, I'm going to be leading these people," and someone who might be ambitious might be excited that he has power over other people.
Yeah.
But to hear from the father of someone that you're leading that this is my daughter,
Yeah.
that would just take away that, and it
Yeah.
would kind of snap you back to reality that I'm not controlling other people. I'm serving these
I'm
people.
serving. It's
Yeah.
servant. That's a great word. It is
Yeah.
servant leadership. That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's servant leadership.
Yeah.
You're blessed to be in a position of influence, and it's a position of trust, is what it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, depending on what industry, military leadership is extreme. It looks different in corporate America.
Mhm.
You detach. You work a schedule in corporate America, and then you detach from these people.
Mhm.
In the military, it's constant. There's no off duty time.
Mm.
So when you become a leader, you have to operate in a different space, a different mindset. And that mindset is I gotta always be available. I don't care what time of night it is, what time of day it is. I gotta structure my life to where I am available to the people I'm charged to lead always.
Mhm.
And that's how I parent, you know. I parent that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, that's the thing. Everything we learn here in the leadership topic is relevant in life.
Yeah.
Everything.
Mhm.
If you're going to be a leader in your life, all these attributes needs to be there. You
Yeah.
have to.
Transferable.
Everything is relevant, and
Yeah.
even in your business, going back to where you saying you build a trust and build a value, it's the same in business. If you, it doesn't matter about the product. It's the customer wants to know what's in it for me.
Yeah.
Where's the value? And so
Hmm.
your friends, your family, the value of brotherhood, the value of your parents. It's what you become to these
Yeah.
people that matters. So,
Yeah. So I'll say this, man. I know you want to cut it off because it has been almost 2 hours. Um, Talking about the business, the entrepreneur side of it. I'm not an entrepreneur, but I studied business, at the master level. And now I'm in this environment where I get to see this company I work for. It's a Fortune 200 company, meaning it's one of the top 200 companies in the country, in the U.S. We're not a global company. We only operate in the United States. And so it was one of the top 5 industry companies. But I watch how they focus on the customer. The product is energy, right? It's energy, electric utilities going to people's houses, right? That's the product. And the cost of energy is the cost of energy. I don't care what company is providing it, it's the same cost. But where this company separates themselves is their focus on the customer, right? So, what kind of image do you have in the community? What kind of work are you doing outside of providing that product to the customer? You know, what do you support? Well, giving millions of dollars to HBCUs every year, well, that adds to your bottom line because what you're demonstrating is you care about the customer. So it just I always come back to that word care. To lead in any industry or any avenue, any venture, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, if you're dealing with customers, your customers want to know that you care about them.
Mhm.
And you got to be able to demonstrate that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same in life. You got to care. The more you care, the more you learn. The more you get into learning. It's the people that don't care about life are lacking the knowledge because they don't want to pursue it. So you have to actually care about the things. What's going on in the world? Oh, I don't care. Then you don't really know what's going on in the world. What's going on in your life? I don't care. Then you're not really informed of what's going on in your life. How can you get things right if you don't care? So everything come back to caring. Caring allows you to learn. Learning allows you to develop and become what you want to do. So you have to care. So if you like what you're listening to, hit the subscribe button and listen to more Old Head podcasts.